Welcome to the Ellis Talker Show. If you enjoy our content, please like or subscribe.
Hi, welcome to the Ellis Talker Show. I'm DV LeBron. Do you have any construction needs? Maybe you need to get a pergola or something. Check out K&H Construction. Chris Helms, he's a local guy out of Waxahachie. Let him know DV LeBron sent you. Today, my very special guest and candidate for Precinct 2 of Ellis County Commissioner's Court, Mr. Garrett Bailey. How you doing, sir?
Doing pretty well. How are you?
I'm good. You decided to throw yourself into the gauntlet that is Ellis County politics, haven't you?
Absolutely.
I do appreciate you wanting to serve your community, sir. Can you go ahead and tell the people of Ellis County more about you?
Well, I think it's almost we've come full circle here. So I am a recent resident of Ellis County, and I think even before I moved out here, I introduced myself to you because I found you to be a very resourceful individual in the community. But yeah, I moved out. My family and I moved here in September of last year, and I've lived in the DFW area for going on 16 years. And I am originally from South Carolina. So after retiring from the military in 2010, Dallas area was the best place to find a job. We still had the recession going on back in those days. You know, employment was hard. So clean slate, no friends, no family. I came out here to carve a path and a future for myself. And, you know, when we got married last year and we had our first son, I wanted to move to a community that shared the values that I grew up with in a small town in South Carolina, and that's how I brought myself to Ellis County.
Well, congratulations on the new baby and the marriage. I mean, you're getting it all knocked out, aren't you?
Yeah, it's we definitely didn't. It wouldn't have been my plan to do it that way, but you know, we never know what the good Lord wants for us. My wife and I, we actually met 10 years ago, and we've just taken our time and progressing in our relationship. And so we got married and had a kid and moved all in the same year.
I love it. Well, thanks again. Thank you from one brother to the other for your service.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And then thank you for wanting to serve your community. I tell every candidate that comes on that because it's a big thing to want to serve. What made you want to run for Precinct 2? What was it that said that got you? You know what? I gotta do this. I gotta run. This needs to happen.
Well, I bought my first house in 2017 in Denton County, and very quickly, I think there's definitely a shift when you go from renter to homeowner. You become a little bit more invested in your local politics and what's going on, property taxes specifically. So I bought my first house in 2017 in a small town, Oak Point, which is next to Little Elm. Most people know where Little Elm is. It resides on the peninsula of Lake Louisville, and very quickly that area was moving really fast. It was the population. Welcome to Oak Point is 3,200, and my development was a master development plan. Had 1,100 homes, and I was probably about the 200th house to move in there. When I started building the house there, it was a 2-lane highway, and then it went to a 6-lane highway. And very quickly, I realized that Denton County really kind of dropped the ball when the development part of that process came to life, because you have 2 bridges. You have the bridge that comes from Lake Dallas. You have a bridge that comes from Little Elm, and you're stuck out on a peninsula. And so it never really made sense to me for them to want to throw as many houses as possible in that little area. And so just a simple commute from my new home over to Frisco would take me about 35, 40 minutes. So moving down to Ellis County, I realized that same growth and development is also happening here, and wanted to be a part of that conversation and make sure that we got the roads and bridges to support that development. We need to make sure that the resources are maximized from a savings standpoint, and also from the conversations and just really having a good productive idea of what we're doing, how we're doing it, and what are we going to do to get there.
I definitely plan on covering infrastructure because there is a lot going on in Ellis County. I mean, you can't have this interview and talk about this position without talking infrastructure. There's just too much going on. But what experience, what your life experience do you bring to the table if you were elected to this position?
Yeah, life experience is definitely it's a full resume for sure. I mean, I spent the first 10 years to join the military when I was 17 years old. Originally, my dream was to be a fighter pilot. I found out real quickly that I didn't pass the physical for that. My eyes weren't good enough. So I was originally in the National Guard. So I moved to California to just see where the path would take me, and I found my way to the financial industry. I started out in credit card processing, merchant services is the actual trade name, going door to door to businesses as a 1099 employee, commission based. And so I found the value in being able to engage small business owners and seeing what their struggles are from a personal standpoint. People talk about becoming an elected official. It's like an unsung hero, but I got to say the real unsung heroes is small business owners, because those guys don't get to call in sick. Those guys don't get to, phone a friend. I mean, if someone doesn't show up, they've got to put in the extra hours and whatnot. So I developed a passion to really make sure that businesses have what they need to be successful. And, taking payments, being able to accept credit cards, process transactions is very important. And so I did really well at it. And the company I was working for was based out of Dallas. So after being deployed to Iraq in 2008, I I wanted to pursue that career here in the DFW area, and that's kind of what I did. So
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like being involved in the business community is something that it does give you some perspective, because you are going to be part of budgets, and there's
right.
going to be a lot of stuff with that. There are 4 candidates in that race for the open seat. Lane Grayson timed out, and he's running for Ellis County judge. But there are 4 candidates in that are running for that seat. Why you?
Well, that's the one exposure that being working for JP Morgan's given me is I've been able to get to know a variety of businesses, from the small, medium-sized businesses that I started my career in to the commercial clients. My last role was emerging middle markets, clients from 20 million to $100 million in revenue. Having that skill set does a multitude of things when you're in a role such as a county commissioner. One, it prepares you to have difficult conversations. Not everything is going to ever go your way, but it's almost like it's the art of the deal. What can I do to walk away and the other individual walk away and accomplish something. So there's contract negotiation skills that needs to be something that needs to be cultivated. I have that in my tool belt. I can look at contracts, I can identify problems, issues. Another thing that comes with the banking industry is developing trends. Seeing where, how's the real estate market going, and then being able to also look at other industries that are also growing as well. So you can see that we're expanding the hospital. The Baylor Hospital is expanding. You can see that there's over 20,000, 25,000 homes being built that are slated to be built in Ellis County currently. So, that's another 70,000 new citizens of Ellis County. So you see all these trends, and it's like when you take that data, what can you do with it? So I'm able to, take those skills that I've gathered from working in the financial world and being able to apply that to a position as being a commissioner.
Since we're talking finances, the budget, taxes, it's always an experience, and taxes are something that are definitely affecting Ellis County residents just in general. And I know that the county is a small part of that, the biggest chunk being the school taxes. But tell me, what is your philosophy on taxes? How will you vote on those things? How will you look at those things? And what are some of the things in the budget that you'd like to?
Well, one thing in business, everyone knows the biggest critical factor is your overhead. What can we do to reduce cost? That has to be the focus for any elected official when it comes to maximizing the taxpayers' revenue, is where can we reduce costs? Since deciding that I was going to run for this position, I've been attending the county commissioner meetings. I've been intimately involved in looking at what's on the agenda, seeing the conversations and seeing how they're having those conversations. When they passed the 2026 budget in September, they disclosed that there was a $5 million shortfall that had emerged. And that $5 million shortfall that occurred happened because there was some unchecked conversations as far as the new developments with the new county buildings. So you have the central district building that was built, and you have change orders that come through, and it's kind of like just rubber stamping it, not even looking at the actual cost. And then by the time it was all over, they're like, oh, we've gone over $5 million over. That's the kind of problems we don't want to have. So we need elected officials that are going to pump the brakes, take a look and say, okay, why are we having these change orders? What can we do to mitigate that? Another concern that was also that I found out since moving here is also the animals. The animals in the community. Last year, SPCA closed their doors and said, "Hey, go find somebody else to manage, the pet population." And I've done some due diligence and digging into that, and I found out that I guess it was about 10 years ago, another county commissioner, composed of different individuals, they sold a building for $1 to, and they put no verbiage to have that to bring back that money. So now our facility that we had complete control over, we sold. They want to sell it back to us for $700,000. That's a concern. Those are things the county commissioner is really fumbled the ball on. And then they also had another opportunity to kind of right their wrong when they built the new court, the new JP court. There was a facility right there in I-35 that was in the county's possession, and they chose to sell that at a fraction of the price of what it was worth. And now that facility's turned into a veterinarian facility. So these are things that having the right individual in the room and saying, "Hey, what can we do for our taxpayers and do it better?" All those things that I just mentioned, there's no increase in the taxes. It's just making smarter decisions. And we need an individual that can make those smart decisions.
And when you're doing those yearly budgets, how will you approach? Are you going to be approaching it line by line? Is there something you'd like to see with every budget when you're putting it together, when you're going through those budget workshops?
So absolutely line by line, and I know, and I looked at I think it was like three or 400 pages of the previous, the budget proposal that was passed for 2026. It was over 300 pages long. I went through there and looked at a lot of the items. There was a significant increase in mental health from 500,000 to 15. I'm sorry, 500,000 by $1 million. So the new budget is going to be like $1.5 million. Never really got an answer why that was such a significant increase, but I want to scrutinize every single line item. I saw a line item for $10,000 for the sheriff's department's uniforms. I had also attended a city council meeting where there was the police uniforms and fire uniforms that were being purchased. What does our procurement policy look like? Are we engaging other cities, other municipalities, other counties, and making sure that we're doing a bulk purchase on our products? Just like Walmart, just like Amazon, volume can control cost, and we need to be able to amplify that with the resources that we have.
Definitely. One of the things, kind of switching gears with when you do the budget, is Ellis County is growing. It's growing a lot, and I believe the precinct that you're running for, that covers some Venice and some other places. There's a lot of growth going on in the county. It's becoming a county that's more city than county in some places, even though it's the county. And there's a lot of challenges that are happening with that, and one of them is infrastructure. And you were talking about that earlier. The road quality is something that's important to precinct 2 voters because they trek on it every day. Infrastructure is something that you see online, somebody talking about every day. Talk to me about your priorities when it comes to roads, bridges, infrastructure in Ellis County.
Well, I absolutely think that county officials and city officials need to really work together on this one, because I don't think that the state level officials are doing as much as they possibly can. And I understand that a lot of the roads and bridges that are within Ellis County do fall under a text dot jurisdiction scenario. But if we're not putting the proper amount of prioritizing those projects, then we're going to have problems, and the finger is going to be pointed at those elected officials that let that happen. So to give you an example, I myself moved into a new development, and less than a mile from where I reside now, there's a master development going up that's going to be 1,200 acres, 600 homes. It's a 10-year plan. You're talking about 5,000 to 7,000 new citizens that are going to be living relatively close to where I'm at. And so when my relatives, my in-laws, come from Houston to visit, they have to come through back roads, and Google's going to take the path of least resistance. So unless we have the infrastructure to support that, we need to have a plan to fix that. There's definitely some difficult conversations that need to be had. There's possible bonds that need to be involved, but at the end of the day, I think that if I said that would you rather be home, safely, the citizens getting home safe, and not spending 3 hours a day in traffic, would you rather trade that for, a little bit more, if there's a bond needed or something like that? I think the citizens would probably agree that, we need the roads to support the growth.
Right. Now, you being in the county and with all the growth that's happened, there's a bunch of developers that are developing things, and there's these muds, and that's a contentious issue. What are your thoughts on muds and all the different stuff that they're using to build out in the county? What are your thoughts on those things?
Well, I was a part of a mud whenever I was in Denton County, so I do know from even a homeowner standpoint the pain points of that experience. Muds and PIDs are something that nobody really wants to go through, but at the same time, we can't force the developers to split the bill on things like that, because at the end of the day, they are directly contributing to a revenue that wasn't there before. So we do need to make sure that we're doing things in a way that we're not losing in the bank on it, right? So there could possibly be other sources of revenue out there that we can lean on to bring in, or like again, have those serious conversations with those developers and make sure that they're going the extra mile to not force the cost onto the new citizens. So, but I think that goes beyond the county's line. I think that there needs to be a shared conversation with the city officials as well, because we're in this together. As much as Ellis County is growing.
Developers, sometimes and that's a push and pull thing that I've learned, just from doing different interviews and looking at them. If you want the developer to do something, some kind of repair, something, maybe drainage, they ask for something. So it's a push and pull. There's always ask and give. If you are elected to the Precinct 2 commissioner, how will you approach these developers when it comes to drainage and road issues?
I want to make sure that they're doing the right job, because I can tell you from, again, going back to being that homeowner who went through the home buying experience and then do development, they'll cut corners. They may take that initial cost and putting down a road in a community, and then not even within a year later, that road is starting to crack and you're starting to have potholes. And then, when the community's calling the developer and saying, hey, we've only been living in this community for a year and we already have holes in our roads, they're like, oh, you need to contact the city. That's something that I would have a strong conversation with the developers, and make sure that we have some verbiage to claw back the quality of the craftsmanship, because we as taxpayers are losing a lot of money when we have to go back in and redo the work that these developers have done. And having lived it, I know that there's a lot of other citizens in the county that are probably experiencing that same thing, where they've moved into a new community, new roads have been put down. Next thing you know, it's like we have bad roads. Like, these roads need to last us 10, 20 years before we even have to, we should be coming back to them and repairing them.
Yeah. Another issue that's big is the county has a lot to do with emergency services. They run the jail, the sheriff's department, that kind of stuff. There's a lot that goes on when it comes to law enforcement in the county. First, I want to hear just your thoughts in general about law enforcement and how, whether you support, how you will support, and then we'll kind of go into those little issues that are going on with that.
Well, I absolutely support law enforcement, and I know and understand that the Ellis County Sheriff's Department is a very large. They have a very large responsibility, given the vastness of the rural areas within the county that they have to they're got to take care of. I'll say this: we had an incident this recently where a fire was behind my home, and the fire department was here within like 5 minutes. I believe that having seen that firsthand event and how quickly they responded, I believe that our law enforcement and our first responders need to be properly trained and equipped. Like, that would be one of the highest things on my priority list, that make sure that that's always happening. In the 2026 budget proposal, I know that there was a good increase to the law enforcement's pay salary, and that's good to see, because we obviously need to be competitive with our surrounding counties and make sure that we're retaining the good officers in the area, but also making sure that their morale is high. Anyone that's ever stressed out, you can really delay your judgment and having to respond to a situation. So, having the proper morale is very important. Those are all things that, I would want to have conversations directly with deputies and know for myself that they're being taken care of, because they serve a lot of people.
Sheriff Norman has to, you're right. There's a vast area that they have to cover. Sheriff Norman has to compete with local departments who are, I mean, you could go to Waxahachie, just Waxahachie PD and make more. So he's having to compete with those things and parity. So in that respects, that's definitely something that could be looked at. The other thing too is infrastructure. You have a very old jail. If you're elected on county commission, what will you do to kind of address that old and aging jail?
Yeah, having gone to some of these, county commissioner meetings, I've heard and witnessed the conversations behind the new jail and the uh, the development, the decisions going on behind that. I love this opportunity to get elected and be in front of those conversations, because one thing with efficiency is making sure we're not duplicating efforts. And the last thing I want to do is to put taxpayer money towards something only to have to turn around and tear it up because we didn't do it right. So we do need to make sure that whatever we build is going to be something that is going to be modular in nature, that we can expand on and be able to grow with the county. But yeah, that's something that is definitely important. I don't know the details behind the detention officer who passed the year before last, but if something contributed to that from an internal standpoint, I would like to think that being in the county commissioner's position, I want to make sure to address that, to make sure that that doesn't happen again. And if it's the facility of how it was designed or whatever have you, all those things need to be taken into account so it doesn't happen again.
A jail is never a safe environment by any means, but there are things that can be done to make officer safety a priority. And also, the safety of the inmates that are in there, because you have to maintain their safety as well. There is a big mental health crisis in North Texas in general, with all kinds of different pressures that come with that. And you had mentioned something earlier about spending and stuff. And one of the things that end up happening a lot of the times is, the sheriff's deputies are having to take these mental health cases and take them into the jail. What are your thoughts about that, mental health and overcrowding, and what are kind of some of the things that you'd like to see? Maybe transferring to one of the facilities like Hickory Trails or others throughout the DFW instead of maybe incarceration?
Well, I don't know the details of that massive increase in mental health that line item that I did see on the budget. So I'd like to know where that was going and how it's being spent. Maybe that was something that was put forth to address those needs. But also, we do have, Dallas is our adjacent county, and UT Southwest, is my understanding, is going forward with a mental health facility for specifically to address those needs. So, we should probably be listening to all options on the table and see what we can do. But there definitely needs to be, I know, you're a veteran, I'm a veteran. We have veterans that have these challenges. Often they shouldn't, but we need to get them in the right place for help. And you know, if we have a veteran come in, maybe we should contact the VA. Any resource that we have available, we should be able to explore and make sure that those individuals are getting help.
Well, since you mentioned this, well, I'm going to go ahead and put you on record. The Ellis County has a veterans treatment court, and I have been involved with that. You actually came and sat down on one of the most recent meetings of that and saw the workings of that. I believe you're looking at becoming a mentor as well. I'm a mentor in the program. Tell me, will you commit to supporting that program and the continuance of that program?
Absolutely, absolutely. If there's one program that I've seen, I'm like, this is definitely has to be expanded and it needs to be out there. I will not to divulge too much information, but I can tell you, I could have been a person who would have benefited a lot from something like that. I mean, I did 18 months in combat, and when you come home, it's one of the most odd things is to tell people that you felt better in combat than you do back home. That transition period is very hard for people to comprehend and understand. Sometimes you'll make some stupid decisions and you regret those decisions, and having the support of other veterans to get you back on track and let them know that I'm a person who's running for county commissioner. I've gone from the slump air, the rough areas, those dark areas that veterans have gone through to rise to this area. So, with, good prayer and good veterans, we can get there.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. The support is appreciated. I'm grateful for the county commission and just county judge and that, Ms. Beatty, Miss Montgomery, Judge Wallace, who have all kind of all spearheaded in one way, shape, or form at some point. This program, it has been so good to our brothers and sisters in arms and giving them a second chance. Now I kind of want to get into just your overall general philosophy and some things before I close out, because we're running out of time. I wanted to find out, or I want you to talk about how important transparency is to you and accountability.
I would also add to accountability and transparency is managing expectations. We need to be able to good, bad, ugly. We need to have those conversations. We can't avoid it. Nothing's ever going to be perfect. We're going to have shortfalls that are going to occur. It's how we adjust, like shoot, move, communicate. Like what are we going to do? So transparency for me. One thing that I'm doing, I don't think any of my other candidates are doing, is I'm a huge component of social media. I've actually created a Facebook page specifically for Precinct 2. I do want to have a personal relationship with the voters and the residents of Precinct 2. I want to be able to really target the conversation of things that are happening. Even if there's like a pothole or there's a road or something that has someone's concern, we can have those conversations in that group one on one. I have a phone line directly created for people to contact me as well. I mean, some people are not averse to social media. I want to be very accessible to any person. I know, some of the commissioners have like one day of a month visits or things like that. I probably would like to think I could do better than that and be able to, anytime something comes up. And then the accountability, when we need to have conversations about expenses, or what can we do to improve a certain area. That's something that we're gonna work on together.
Now, Commissioner's Court, that one of the criticisms that I have seen is that Commissioner Court happens at a time when people are at work. A lot of people work and it's just not accessible. A lot of the cities, they do their meetings at evening and the county does not. Is that something that you would like to see changed?
I would need to see the data behind that, because I also know that the Commissioner Court does live stream and has their all their hearings or meetings online in an archive that you can access. I know that in some instances, I think that where the community needs to speak on, like for instance, the budget proposal of 2026, I spoke at that and voiced their opinion or concern. Those are the ones where I would be like, okay, well, I can't do that because I'm working. I can't make that. So there's those one-offs. So I don't know if maybe the conversations that are probably more likely to draw criticism be held maybe once a quarter on a weekend. Maybe that might be an alternative to do. But I think all options should be on the table, because at the end of the day, we need to be held accountable for the citizens. The citizens need to hold us accountable of what we're doing.
There's going to be some citizens that don't like what you may do if you're elected, and they may not agree with what you do when you're elected. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. How will you deal with those constituents?
I would probably like to put on my salesman hat at that point and transition into finding the value. Let's focus on the issue and how can we resolve that issue. There's never the answer. There's an A answer. So we'll figure out all the options that we have available and narrow down on something that's going to be the most impactful and the least amount of resistance that may cause citizens. I think no one's going to ever be 100% satisfied, and unfortunately, that's just the nature of the beast. But I think if we have a goal of what we want, Ellis County to be, and strive to that purpose, I think all our intentions will be met with.
The other thing you're going to have to deal with is the other commissioners. They all have different priorities. They have different things going on. You may not agree or you disagree, and you got to work together. Tell me, how will you go about fostering a good relationship with them, and maybe even city leaders that are within Ellis County, to kind of make things governance easier?
Goes back to just being a negotiator like Trump, right? Being a deal maker. I always say there's two reasons people don't buy from you. They don't trust you, or they don't see the value in what you're doing. I would, if I was to have other colleagues, commissioners that didn't agree with me, I would find out which one of those two is apparent. Do they not trust me, or they don't see the value? And really working on providing value is most important part of it. I couldn't tell you how many times I've been across from the table from a company and I've had to increase their costs, not because I wanted to, but because, my big company, JP Morgan, says we're going to be raising this, and it's like, okay, now you're responsible for retaining that relationship. So, you can imagine you have a company who makes a couple $100 million in revenue, and they're like, well, we're walking because we want this. I'm sorry. And so I have to have that difficult conversation. So you just have to be very articulate and not be afraid to upset someone.
Last question. I'm sure you've been out there door knocking and meeting constituents or, people who could end up being constituents. What is the biggest issue that keeps getting brought up by these people that you meet and talk to?
As shocking as it sounds, a lot of people are like surprised to see me at their door. I have been going literally door to door to door knocking, and and I guess I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I'm not from around here. I'm an outsider, and so I know that my opponents are going to lean real heavy. And I've been born here. I've been raised here, but I'm going to go to those new communities, those new residents, new homeowners that have not been from Ellis County. And I mean, there's 100,000 people in this county that were not here 10 years ago. We're in a state of transitioning, and I want to be a voice of that transition. And a lot of them, the conversation I'm getting is, I'm surprised you're at my door, because from what I see, my opponents are going to the people that they know, not so much the people that they don't know. So that's the big surprise.
Yeah. I've always said, I have family in parts of Puerto Rico that have been there, going back probably about 400 years. And I don't think some of them, I would never want them running as mayor of anything in Puerto Rico. So it's, why I do respect that, some people have been here for a long time, and that has its value. It's not all of it. Definitely not all of it. But, the race remains to be seen. And, now you're going to go into this political season and it's going to be something else.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Can I add to that?
Go ahead.
So to add to that, again, I'm from a small town in South Carolina. I grew up on Bailey Lane. Everybody down that road is a relative of mine. I've I've actually taken the time to try and talk to my opponents on a one-on-one basis, just to see who they are, who I am, and just let them know that this is going to be a friendly race to see who's the better candidate for Ellis County. And I think I put myself in that shoes. If I was them and someone came into my county and they're running against me, and they don't know my neighbors, they don't know my friends, they don't know my family, like it's a completely different mindset. But in the South, we have a thing. It's like, you bet with your wallet or you bet with your heart. Which one are you going to look at? So I get it. My opponents are wonderful, outstanding individuals, but I think if you look at the resumes and see what I could deliver, it's pretty clear that I would be a very suitable candidate for this role.
Well, on my show, the candidate always gets the last word. So I'm going to go ahead and shut up and let you have the mic, sir.
Wow, I do really appreciate that. So again, my name is Garrett Bailey, running for County Commissioner Precinct 2. I do have a website. It's Texans for GarrettBailey.com. Also, my Facebook group is Vote for Garrett Bailey, Garrett D. Bailey. I'm sorry. Yeah. So I am live, and I'm not good talking one on one like that, but let's see. I want people to know I'm 43 years old. I have an 18-month-old son. I married a woman that I've loved for the last 10 years. My focus is on their future, my child's future. I am a diehard Republican, a strong conservative. I lose sleep at night thinking about the district that's above us, is Jasmine Crockett's district. I mean, we need to be very strategic in how we manage and how we prioritize the needs of Ellis County. And the only way we're going to do that is with strong conservative values. And so, we have to work together. And if people out there, who are the voters out there, don't vote for someone just because you like them or they went to school together or you guys go to church together, vote on an individual that has the skill set to deliver. I can highlight multiple instances where this current court and previous courts have caused issues because they didn't have the proper skills in an individual who can do contract negotiations, have the proper clawbacks. It's almost like there's multiple doctors out there. You're not going to go to a orthopedic surgeon for your knee, and you would want someone who has business sense to be in the room, to be able to negotiate the procurement policies and be able to reduce the cost. I mean, we don't need to necessarily raise taxes, but I can guarantee you, if we can reduce the cost to a way that we can expand our growth and manage it, it's going to look a lot better for our citizens. So, vote for me is a vote for a much more financial secure future.
Once again, thank you for wanting to serve your community, and I appreciate you coming on. Can you stick around real quick after the show?